Welcome to this month's episode of Relaunch My Life Radio. And it has been quite a while since I've had my beautiful partner Paul on my podcast. In fact, fun fact, he's actually one of the highest rated episodes ever on the episode that we did a few years ago around healing with hypnosis. And so today I decided to sit down with him so that we could do a special Q&A and spill some of our relationship secrets. We get a lot of questions from our students and community about what it's like working together and making a difference in the world. So I thought we'd get Paul on today to chat about hypnotherapy, of course, NLP, our brand new speaking academy, but also our relationship, how it's evolved, and some challenges that we have navigated along the way. We're also, of course, in this episode, going to give you some actions to take away so that it can help you in your life. And so before we get started, I just want to say thank you for being here, Paul.
Thank you for having me. I feel like we're always talking, but not on the podcast. You got to give the people what they want. Number one of the best guests. That's fun to hear. But I love, we chat all the time, but it's nice to share some of the things we do behind the scenes with everyone that's listening.
It's true. When we take our dog Max for walks every day, sometimes I wish I had an audio recorder because honestly, some of our conversations are not only life-changing and change my perspective on things, but they're hilarious as well. So a lot of people are curious about how we work together as a couple and also how we work on stage and off stage. And so I think, whether like people are always wondering if it's something that just comes naturally for us or if it's something that we have to work on. So let's dive in, and I've got a couple of questions that we're going to cover. And so I guess if we start with the fact that we are celebrating 11 years together this year, it feels like it hasn't been that long. What would you say our secret is?
So I think there's several different reasons why we work so well together in life and business. Let me start with just the first thing that comes to mind. I feel like our communication is fantastic. In the past, and especially from my upbringing, communication was not a super strong suit in what I learned from family. Most of the time, a lot of things went unsaid and people were afraid to talk and speak up what they were thinking and feeling. And so I had that hangover growing up in early relationships, and I think, kind of counterbalance that by becoming a speaker and being able to do what I do for a living. But it wasn't until we got together that I really felt safe to talk about what I was thinking and feeling and express what I really wanted in a relationship. And really, you created that safe foundation for me to open up that way. And I feel like that is one of the keystones of our relationship, where we can both speak what's on our mind, talk things out with each other without having to worry about, what the other one's going to think, because we know that we both are learning from each other's journey. I think that is one of the key big secrets that really, really makes this something that's magical.
I would agree with that. And honestly, sometimes I talk to people that I meet or people that are looking to get into a relationship or people that are struggling with relationships. And I honestly sometimes think, I don't know how anyone's relationship really works without the awareness that you and I have, but also the commitment to looking at our own stuff. Like I think we're both always aware and working on our triggers and aware of when we're responding from past relationship issues or upbringing issues, or whether it's a present moment situation. And so I think we both really try our best to not project our repressed shadow onto one another. But I also think when we met, of course, there's always, attraction and connection in that way. But I would say we were both on the path of doing a lot of inner work, but we were in our own power. And so we were sort of happy in who we were individually. And so then now that we're together, it just amplifies everything. And I do think, those who are listening that have listened to this podcast for quite a while, you probably know the story about how we met, but it was quite a universally orchestrated meeting that we had. And it felt like it was just like a jigsaw puzzle piece where we realized, well, together we're going to be able to have a bigger impact and a bigger ripple in the world. And so I would say also one of our secrets is the fact that we're both working on and focused on things that are bigger than our relationship. Like we're making a difference in the community. We do meaningful work. And so I feel grateful for that every day. And I think we've both had the contrast of that in previous relationships, which have helped us to be really grateful for the bond and the connection and continuing to want to be the best versions of ourselves individually so that we're bringing that into our relationship. But we're definitely not perfect. Like, we have moments, we're still human, we still trigger each other.
And I think with the triggering, like you mentioned earlier, I think in past relationships, or even that not being able to say things, that created a lot of issues. But with us, when something is bothering me about myself or you, we will bring it up, talk it through, and kind of nut out how it's emerged, where it came from, what it means for both of us, and why it's showing up like that, versus going, well, you're the problem, or you're the reason I can't do this, or I'm the reason you can't do that. We kind of bring it up, kind of see it from different angles, and actually use it as a thing to help us find the truth versus just be stuck in the trigger. And I've never really experienced that in relationships. And I know we both talked about like friends and people that we know in the world that basically have a secret or something they can't share with their partner, or afraid to bring up or talk about, or harbor and build up a trigger that becomes a resentment, that becomes the reason why they shut themselves down or want to leave or whatever. Like, I feel like we get those things early so that we transform them into something that brings us closer together versus being something that creates a bigger separation. And that's something I've never experienced in a relationship before either.
I'm going to throw you a really random statement that I'd heard on a podcast. I can't remember exactly what podcast it was, but it was a woman talking about the fact that in a relationship, the quality and the health of the relationship will be largely dependent on how the man is leading in that relationship. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know that I'm a big believer that we're a team.
Yeah.
And so we work as a team together. And part of that is finding what we both want to need and setting a direction and moving together. And I guess, like, in a way, me leading the fact that we're both co-navigating and co-piloting stuff. I think some partnerships, someone wants to do all the steering and they don't necessarily match where the other person wants to go. I feel like if any partner isn't doing what they want to do, feeling fulfilled in themselves, that's going to affect the other person. So I generally have been health focused, have been working on myself focused for a fair portion of my life. And I feel like, I think we're both talking about this before in prep for the podcast, is we both bring a mostly filled cup to the relationship. So we're not going to each other for, hey, I need this from you, or like fill this hole in my life. It's like a place we go for giving. And I think if a man or a woman or whoever in the relationship is not full of themselves in a good way, then they're going to sometimes be taking from the other partner versus giving. And so, like, I don't feel like I'm leading our relationship, but I feel like as a team, I really make a conscious effort to meet you where you are and kind of work out how we can get to where we want to go. And I guess that's a form of leadership in a way, and not just not care about your wants and needs or be so focused on where I want to go. Like, it's somewhere in the middle for me.
I think when I heard it initially, I thought, oh, that's a bit like harsh. But then when I really considered it, I thought about all of the ways that you do lead in your health and in your mental, emotional well-being and in your study and in, financial knowledge. And there are so many aspects that I appreciate that you do lead, but it's also a dance as the woman, I think, and the feminine in the relationship, to trust your man and let him lead. And I think that's something that even I've had to work on. And in our society, I think we as the feminine can really improve upon. Like, we do sometimes like take control, and you've even joked sometimes that I can be a bit of a control freak, and that's some of the wounds and the past triggers that I've had to work through and continue to work through. So.
And I guess that shows up a lot in our work aspect, where we're both very want to be directing, want to be leading, want to do things a certain way, and that's both different for both of us. Like, you like doing things your way, I like doing things my way. They both lead to the same place eventually, but that sometimes shows up. But the way we've managed to navigate that has been really good. And I think in some areas of life, I'm a little bit more leading, you're a little bit more leading, but I think it's a dance.
Yeah.
There's a time where I'm leading you this way, you're leading me this way, and then we find that rhythm between that where we both can be in step. And if it doesn't work well, we are stepping on each other's toes sometimes. So having enough space and giving each other enough room to do that as well. I guess then, like when you're saying me leading and stuff, this was a question I had for you. What do you think has changed for you personally in terms of your beliefs and the way you see the world in relationship and the world from when we first met to now?
Oh, that's a huge question. Okay, Juliet, sum up 11 years of growth in a couple of sentences. I mean, when I met you, I hadn't yet studied your hypnotherapy and I hadn't studied NLP. And that in itself shifted so much of the way that I filtered the world, and it allowed me to let go of so many other layers that I didn't know that I still needed to. I think the first few years of our relationship was me just learning to trust, to let you in, and that you were what you said you were, because I had to let go of like beliefs that it was too good to be true. You know, sometimes when life brings you everything you ever wished for, you almost like push it away because you don't believe it. And that was interesting for me. It was like, wait, he is a good guy. Wait, he does love me. How much love can I actually allow myself to receive? And that was more confronting for me. It was, can I let this person love me so much more than I've ever allowed? And that sounds really, you know, sappy, but it was challenging for some reason to notice the boundaries that I had around how much love I could allow myself to receive. So that was really interesting. And I think as well, we're not the same people that we were when we met. And we are acknowledging and aware of the fact that all we are is change. And most people get into a relationship and say, oh, I love you, please stay exactly the way you are. But our commitment to each other is, you know, exploring and discovering, well, what version of you are you today? And what are your values? And I think my values have also shifted. They continue to. I think in everyone's life, our values shift during times as well. And we just communicate that with each other and support each other's values rather than see them as a conflict or a threat or anything like that. But it's I've changed so much. And I think one of the biggest things is just being with someone that allows me to be me, and you never stop me from doing or exploring anything that I want. And I think that's really important as well. I think some of our community sometimes say, oh, you guys are couple goals. Like, oh, I'm so jealous of what you guys have, or I'd love to have a relationship like you. But I would say it's challenging. Like every relationship is challenging. Our relationship is challenging in different ways to yours. If you're listening to this, if you're single and you've had past relationships, you know, our relationship, people look at it from the outside in and they go, oh my gosh, that's a perfect relationship. But it's perfect for us and our values and what matters to us.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I would say has been really challenging is having to be so self-aware and conscious and continue to show up and look at my stuff. Like I can say this now, in previous relationships, I kind of enjoyed being the righteous one, and the one that the person I was in relationship, they were always messing up and not as awakened or things like that. And now in our relationship, I have to constantly check myself because you hold me to such a high level of awareness and owning my shit that's not always really comfortable.
Yeah, but you do that to me as well. So it's not like I'm like, hey, I'm the righteous one. It's like it's a double way street for both
I love
of us.
it when you complain sometimes because I'm like, yes,
it's rare, but it does
human.
happen.
He's human. So I guess
well, there was one thing that you said, that people look at our relationship and they say, I want that. That's couple goals. But people want what we have, but they're sometimes not willing to do what we've done to get it.
Yes.
And I think for both of us, we have really unpacked and explored what we saw in our childhood in terms of relationships. We both have very different dynamics of that. Both come from like families that, you know, parents separated and those kind of things, which had a lot of really great stuff, but also brought a lot of triggers and trauma and emotional things to sort out. But then even the past story of relationships up to when we met and when we got together, and then even what that brought up for us, like constantly cleaning away anything that's stopping us from fully opening and exploring the new version of us that's appearing, because like you've said, we are constantly changing individually, but then that changes the dynamic together. And if we're still running the old program or we're stuck in the way things were, we're not really present with what is.
Yes.
And so just being with each other in that has been really cool. And then being okay to adjust the sails, do things different and go, hey, look, we were thinking this is what it was going to be, but this is what it is now. What are we going to do with that, and how do we want to play that game? And I think that's fun because we're both up for the adventure, and we're not so locked in what society thinks our relationship should be, or what our parents think our relationship, or what we thought it would be.
Yeah.
It's like, well, where are we now? Where do we want to go? Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would you say to people who think, Paul, he's a trainer of hypnotherapy, he just hypnotized Juliet?
Well, I always tell people that you hypnotize me. and I swear, like when I first met Juliet, I was so blown away by you. Like, I tell people I very rarely get rattled by a person, and when I met you, I was totally rattled. I was
What do you mean rattled?
Clean bowled. Imagine like you're at bowling and someone just bowls a ball and your pins just get knocked down. That was me. Like, my whole mental pins were shattered. It was like a full strike, and I was just trying to understand like where you'd come from, how you even existed, and like you just didn't fit what I expected in a person up until that point, and I wanted to know more, and so. Basically, we're here now. And
funny story for those listening. After a few weeks after we had first met, he actually admitted that he thought that I was a competitor coming to suss him out because I was so hypnotic. And this was before I'd studied hypnotherapy.
You came to me wanting to know about what I did and how I taught things and whatever. And so a lot of the questions you asked were interesting. But just Juliet's, I think for me, I had to. I was not naturally gifted in communication like the way that you are.
Yes.
So for me, I had to train and build a lot of the skills. People see me do workshops, run courses, and even do therapy. They're like, wow, you're really good. But I had to put the reps in. I was not good. I was not naturally comfortable, confident speaking and using my words like that. So I did the reps, but I feel like for Julia, it's almost like she just is a duck in water. She just kind of floats and just,
now,
you know.
I remember being very insecure, and in my early 20s having to wear skivvies to work because I had such bad heat rash anytime I had to talk publicly. So it hasn't come naturally. It definitely, I think, has become easier and easier, obviously with practice, and we're going to talk more about this in our Speaking Academy course, but it's something that I've had to work on. But the biggest thing has been working on my subconscious associations, beliefs, my self-worth. A couple of weeks before I met you, I had my first one-on-one hypnotherapy session, and I cleared anxiety and fear of abandonment. And so I just felt so confident and in my power, in myself, that I think that allowed me to communicate from a depth of authenticity that was really, really easy and effortless. And I think that's really what we love to help people tap into, whether it's with our courses or whatever, is peeling back those layers of illusion that aren't even you. And that was the work that I was doing before I met you. And then after we met, it's just continued.
Well, I guess that's like not just in our speaking, but also in our relationship. People look at things and go, oh, you're a natural to this.
Yes.
But they don't see the behind the scenes or the internal work or the external work that creates the result.
Yes.
It's just a shiny result when you see it and you're like, oh, that just must be like that all the time and it must be easy for them. But in anything in life, most people have done something internally or externally for a long period of time to get to where they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then how do you balance being a trainer of hypnotherapy and NLP and knowing all you know and being a partner?
Awesome. Well, the partner context is also different than the life context. And so you kind of have this thing that you talk about in trainings, am I friend Juliet now or am I coach Juliet? And so there's a real thing that happens once you build this skill set. People talk to you and you see the matrix of all their beliefs, all their triggers, all their trauma, and you kind of start saying, okay, this, and you kind of see how they got to where they are and where they're stuck. And you want to help, but then sometimes that becomes the only way people interact with you. And then in the relationship dynamic, obviously the closest person to you, the person you love the most, the person that you want to help the most and be there for, you want to see them as whole and complete and perfect because they already are. And sometimes just meeting them where they are and not wanting to fix or pull them out of their thing that they're going through is a nice way to deal with it. But then the natural, masculine wanting to do stuff, wanting to get something done, wanting to help, wanting to, like that old video of, I've got a nail in my head, it really hurts, and the guy just wanting to take it out versus just, be with them and say, oh, that really sucks. That's something that I find really hard because I naturally will go, okay, this is easy, let's sort it all out. And so I've learned over the years to be present and just listen and, oh, that really sucks, that must, oh, I told you that bitch crazy or whatever, right? So, just really, being there and listening. But also, I found it very powerful for us at times when you ask me, hey, can you help me unravel this or help me to shift this? Then stepping in and doing the work together because we feel safe with each other. We know we can open up about anything and things happen really fast. Like when you're in that space, change work is very fast and very quick. And so I like that we both will be willing to ask versus, hey, you need to sort that shit out. Like I don't impose that on you. If there's a pattern, things coming up, I'm like, hey, have you noticed this? like this seems to be something that's coming up for you, and sometimes you're like, yep, and you go, no, it's actually this, whatever. So bringing awareness to the conversations after obviously seeing a pattern for a while is something that I do, but also not just forcing change on you or thinking you need to be fixed, allowing you to step into that. And also myself, like when things are coming up for me, I'll be like, hey, what about this? Or you saying, hey, I think it could be this. And then us going into a technique or a tool is really powerful. But there's a time and place to be human, to be heard, to be, loved. And then there's a time and place to stop what we call sitting in your shit and just swimming in your problems and blaming the external world, actually looking at how you've contributed to it, what patterns coming up for you, what trigger the person in the external world's pressing. Like, we're humans, things are going to come up, and they come up, and if you deal with them, actually help you to level up and to get some usually pretty profound shift internally, and then the world and your results shift as well. So I think that dynamic we've both learned to navigate. How do you kind of navigate that with me as well, both asking for and helping me?
I think I had something just a few weeks ago where I was going through, I can't even remember the specific situation that it was, but my learning was to learn to ask for help.
Yeah.
And so I literally needed to ask you for help to help me shift through something. And I try not to do that too often, because I don't always, I don't think us being in that coaching capacity for each other is necessary all the time, but just the conversations we have obviously help me gain clarity around situations. I think when you're a team, your partner can help you be the most incredible blind spot. And often when we have arguments, our partners will trigger the blind spots, but sometimes you can also have it proactively. And I think we do ask each other a lot of the times, like, hey, what am I not seeing here? Or is there something that I'm missing here? And sometimes it's literally just like, you're doing great. This is just challenging, you know, and that's sometimes nice to hear too. So, if you're listening to this though and you're not in a relationship right now, one of the things that I think you really always remind me of is nothing's ever lost, it's only transformed. And so look at, if you don't have an intimate relationship, look at, well, who are your closest connections and friendships? And do you have that capacity with someone there? Because some people have got tons of close friendships, but they don't have a relationship. We have a really close connected relationship, and we have some friendships, right? But it's always dispersed. And so I think rather than listening to this and going, oh, that's fair enough for them, they've got each other and that's this anomaly, look at where it is in your life and where you can connect to that, and who you could ask for help if you are feeling a bit stuck or blocked or something in that sense as well. So yeah, I think it's always a balancing act, but also the hypnotherapy tools are amazing. And I think there's just so much power in being able to have that space to be able to tap in to the subconscious and look at what's actually going on deeper than just the surface level situation.
Yeah, and I guess like knowing what we know, if there is buttons pushed by each other on a regular basis, or friends, family, etc., we're always have the emotion come up in the thought and feeling, but then also look at what shadow of our own suppression or judgment is coming up that we're seeing in each other. Like if all of a sudden you're just really pushing my button in a way that you haven't been before, or someone else is, we're both quick to go, okay, what's this bringing up about me? Because we know that inherently, if we're not noticing it in ourselves, we're going to project it onto usually the closest person to us. And then it's really funny, like when you actually integrate and transform whatever you're repressing yourself, then the other person shows up usually completely different, and that you haven't even had to say anything to me or you or anyone else in your world. And I think that's a really powerful self-awareness thing that a lot of couples don't have, because what usually happens is, like with shadow or anything that you're suppressing in yourself, you start pushing it out to other people, and then it gets bigger and bigger every time you ignore it. So your partner gets more annoying. They get really, to the point where it's angering you. Then it gets really to the point where you just don't even want to be around them. And like, I've known so many people in my life that constantly blaming their partner for stuff that, if you look at their life, it's just pushing a button that they're also not accepting in themselves. And if they shifted that, they wouldn't be annoyed about it in someone else. Yeah. And this is something I think it's
a big concept though.
I know, but it's something that when you get, not only transforms your intimate relationship like we have, but it also will change the work dynamics. It'll change And well, we have both of those dynamics. And for a lot of people, they're like, how do you work with your partner in a work context? I could never do that. I'd want to kill them. Like,
yeah.
And so
I hear that a lot. I could never work with my partner, and I literally am just like, it's the most fun ever.
Yeah.
Like, I love working with you. I think sometimes the most challenging thing is
that we
I
enjoy
just
it
want
too
to
much.
I just want to hang out with you all the time. But yeah, it's good. And I think that's one of the secrets as well, is like, one of the secrets for working together is we do always ask ourselves when we're doing things like, how can we make this fun? How can we make this easy? Because, you know, if we're not enjoying it, it's not worth it. We both have a really strong work ethic, and I would say that's a little bit of a shadow trait maybe, is that we do have a tendency to like work hard and push hard. But I think it's because also we're like passionate about what we do, and we know that it's making a difference. And we have so many students that have studied with us that literally say, like, you've changed my life has changed because of this. And also what I love is when students say, oh, initially I wanted to, you know, I was really drawn to Juliet and I hated Paul, but now I love Paul and I can see all of this sides. Or they'll say, Paul's so fun and jokey and Juliet's a bitch. And then after they've done a few courses, they'll realize, oh, actually that was just all their shadow and that was all their projections. And then they get to just see us for who we are, and that we just love sharing things that help people feel more aligned and fulfilled and in flow in their life. And I think one of the most challenging things for me in having the relationship we have is not want to sound like I'm gloating when I'm talking about our relationship, because it's amazing. But I guess this is a good segue, because it's not all bells and bells and whistles. It's not all roses.
Sunshine,
and
rainbows,
whatever the saying is. I mean, I'm going to open up the kids' conversation, the children conversation, because I can remember like maybe 8 or 9 years ago when we were traveling the world, we had a conversation with my uncle and auntie who don't have children, and we'd said to them, yeah, we're not sure if we're going to have children this lifetime. Like, it feels like we would be channeling all of our energy and love into one child, whereas at the moment we're able to have this ripple effect and help hundreds of people's inner children, if that makes sense. And then about 5 years ago, my maternal clock started just like ticking so much louder. And so we had a good chat and we started opening up to the idea of having children. I'd say we started about 4 years ago, and it hasn't happened naturally. And that's been, for me as a woman, such a roller coaster of emotions and hormones. And we together as our partnership have made the decision to not pursue any kind of medical routes, that almost that mindset of if it is meant to happen, it will happen. Like I mentioned on my podcast last month, I had this download sitting at the Sphinx at Giza where I was told, if you're meant to be a mother this lifetime, you will be, and if you're not, you won't be. And it's been such a journey for me, but I suppose for everyone that has been listening to my podcast every month, I'd love to ask you what the journey has been like for you as a man going through this journey and sort of being told that we've had all the tests and it is possible, but it hasn't happened. Where are you at with the whole fertility side of things?
Like I said, it's been not just a one-day journey. It's been it's changed at different points, and I've reflected on a lot of my upbringing and what it meant to be a father or a dad or that in my life. And there's a few things you've referenced, so hopefully I can jump back and forward in it.
I know. I just sort of like gave a bit more background for some reason.
Let me just start with one of the key things that jumped out when you said, like, not be a mother in this lifetime. Like, you are a mother. It's just in different forms. So, like, everyone is always taking on those roles. And so for some people, you're playing that role, or it could be our pets. It could be some of our students showing up in a nurturing, caring way, teaching them, educating them, helping them with their challenges. Like, that's what people would think of as a mother. Yeah. And you don't have one child, you have many dispersed versions. And this is one of those laws that you mentioned earlier, but we didn't really go into, is the law of the one and the many. For just as a general universal law, like, you can have all your energy and focus on, like, in our relationship. For me, you're pretty much the person I talk to and you're everything in my world, right? I don't have a lot of dispersed friends. I got a couple floating around and whatever, but for some people, they don't have one intimate partner that they talk to everything about and everything. They have lots of heaps of friends where they have, you know, a really close emotional connection, really awesome, fun stuff together, a person they do business with, and it's dispersed between many people versus one. And so for a lot of people, their child or the person they nurture, care for, etc., is a one form or two or three or five, or depending on where you come from, right?
Yeah, how many children?
And so that's the person they direct that mothering, fathering energy to. But for us, I feel like we're getting that, and we have all the challenge we would have with children, but we have it dispersed through our pets, our students, our family and friends. Like, we get those same challenges and obstacles. And even the other day, like, one of the things I was talking about, one of my hobbies that I do, the amount of time and energy I put into that would be equivalent to the time and energy I'd put into taking if we had a child, to their sports and their things and all the...
But you're just taking your inner child
I'm just
to your
taking
sport.
my inner child to something that I want to do.
Yeah.
And so the universe is really funny. Like, we all look out and sometimes see things missing, but nothing's ever missing. It's just in a different form than what we thought it would be. And it's usually in the form of your highest values.
Yes.
And for us, we don't value some of the things that some other people do. So therefore it looks different than other people's lives. And I think this is something that's really common in relationships, especially. People look at other people's relationships and see all these things and like, well, my relationship's not like that. But if you look at your relationships, you have strong relationships with people in your values. So if you value health, you have people that you really connect with and share information and probably joke around and do fun things with in that thing. If you have business ones, you probably have good business relationships. Like for us, our actual intimate relationship, our partnership is a high value in our life. And so a lot of our time and a lot of our energy goes to that. And so
I think we've both found that everything else just flows so much better when our partnership is flowing.
In sync, yeah. And so, I mean, that's the idea. Like I think and I know that I am filling that role of being a father in a way. It just doesn't look like what it looks like for some people that actually have a kid.
Yes.
Right? And so there's that. In terms of the journey as a couple, that's one thing, as well as an individual. So I guess as a couple, both of us finding what we both want and finding what that is and what we are willing to do and what we're not willing to do. Where is that boundary? Why do we think the boundary is there? Why do we want to try certain things and not other things? That's been an interesting journey, and to ride the wave of that, because I'm not sure how much, like, you're cool to share, but I think as a man witnessing, like you've even said, you're a different person at different parts of your cycle and what you want to
100%.
need. Like Juliet on day one of her cycle versus Juliet halfway through versus Juliet at the end.
Literally, once I'm at the end of my cycle, I will hear a kid cry and I'll be like, oh. Whereas if I'm in my like ovulation part of my cycle, I will literally be like, oh my God, that's the most beautiful sound in the world.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And this
it's
is
not
what,
the
for
same
me,
reality.
I've realized, like, as a man, and this is a super generalization, so, may not be accurate for everyone, but what I want and need pretty much stays the same every day.
That must be so boring.
It's fantastic. And so
it's a wild ride over here.
And then I hear what Juliet wants one day, and I'm like, okay, we need to make this work. And then a couple days later, it's different. And then I'm like, oh, what the hell's going on? And, just knowing that the nature of your partner and what they want to need will be different based on where they are mentally, emotionally, physically, hormonally, has been a real learning curve for me. Like experiencing the cyclic nature of who you are and what you want and need be so fluid. Yeah. It's very fascinating.
I think even we were talking about the other week, we went to a breathwork evening and I had a visualization of buying a fish tank and getting some fish. And the next day I was talking to you and I said, well, it might just be because I'm feeling really maternal. And I was like, maybe I'll wait a full month. And then if I still want to buy the fish tank, then I know that it's a good decision because I've been through the whole hormonal
Well, I said
shift.
You need to ask yourself every week for the next month.
Yeah.
Because if it's a yes every week, then you really want it. If it's a yes only 1 out of the 4 weeks, then you don't.
Then it's just
if
a
it's
hormonal
a
urge.
half, then maybe.
Yeah.
And so
it's good advice. Good advice.
This is what's really interesting, because where we talk about how a person, their identity, who they think they are, is your values, your beliefs, your past experiences. But then even you've said hormonally how you feel like you're completely a different person at different stages of your hormonal cycle.
Yes.
Like most people don't realize that.
But also, I'm very aware, sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
I'm, going to be 39 this year, and a lot of women's conversations around me are about perimenopause, and so I always listen for patterns and themes. And if more than 3 people in the space of a couple of weeks talk about the same thing, I'm like, okay, there's something here for me to learn about. And so I think for me what's been really important is in this fertility journey, in this, am I going to have a child this lifetime, that kind of thing. I think it's been really important, and I've been really tuned into the fact that I have to let myself feel and grieve the loss so that I don't get hit with a big shock when I'm going through menopause because of the shift of hormones that'll go through then. So I'm almost trying to prepare for that also in this, if that makes sense. So I think that's what's making it such a, it's been such an interesting personal development journey. But I will also add, I wouldn't change a thing. I would say our relationship is closer because of this, the conversations we've had to have. It's almost like 5 years ago, I thought, wow, everything's going great. Everything's perfect. I've done so much inner work. And then it was, okay, let's have a family and then look under this rock. And then I realized all of this stuff that I hadn't worked on or hadn't had to look at. And so it's helped me know just how much we love each other, how much we choose each other, how much we're with each other because we want to be with each other, not, because we have children, but also like just the depth of conversations, but also for me, the level of self-love that I've been able to achieve through this process, because I realized that I had so much worth tied to being able to do that, being able to, oh, well, that's what a woman is supposed to do. And if I can't do that, then I'm not good enough. Like I had all of that bullshit that I didn't know that I had to release and work on. And so it's been really healing. So many things that I'm grateful for. So many. And
your creative energy.
Yes.
You created a lot of other stuff, books and courses and life experiences and inspiration for people that doesn't look like a child, but has a ripple effect in a different way. And I think for both of us, that's been a big realization, knowing that it doesn't look like what other people's life journey looks like. And I think what you said about how this journey's brought us closer in a lot of ways, because it is a different path and it did bring up a lot of things that it wouldn't have. I'm sure having kids would bring up a ton of things too.
Oh my gosh. I did that the other day in my journaling. I was doing the worry time technique, which is a technique that we give to everyone in our NLP practitioner course, which just helps you if you ever feel overwhelmed, worried, stressed out. It just is a fantastic process for getting everything out on paper and clearing it. And so I was doing the worry time technique, and then I played pretend. I was like, imagine I had a child, what would I be worried about? And oh my gosh, the page was like, it was like 20 lines that I just reeled off of like so many things. So I'm sure it would be like opening up a whole other chasm of things. And I think that's sometimes why I've thought I have been so curious about it. I'm a naturally curious person. And it's funny when I think about what I feel like having a child and parenting would be like for us. One of the things is like personal growth. And that's what that would give me, so much, personal growth and challenges. And then I realized, well, the personal growth and challenges I'm getting are in this journey, in not having them. And I'm getting so much personal growth and challenge in that equally, right? Well,
and so, this is one thing much as I know. When you asked about, my journey being a man, and I've talked to a few friends about this, is like I think our kid is going to be what we want I think it's going to be, but it's not. It's never going to be what you think it's going to be. And so the reality and the expectation are two different things. And then letting the kid be who they are versus trying to shape and mold them into who you think they should be to navigate a world that you probably wanted to navigate, that isn't going to be the world that they're going to be prepared for.
Yes.
Because our parents, they usually give you what they didn't have.
Yeah.
And so like I'll be projecting what I think the kid needs, what I think the kid wants, wanting and needing it to become this certain person. And it's actually like pretty a selfish endeavor in some ways. And so I think that would have been a whole nother journey as well, but also like learning to love the kid.
I'm going to call bullshit on that. I don't think you would. I think you would let it be whatever it wanted to be.
Yeah.
Just like you do with me. So maybe that's a little belief that you
it's just an interesting observation. I've talked to a few people about it because it would be inevitable in some way that you'd want to help them to not have challenges you had. But what we've realized in life is the challenges you get are the challenges you need.
Yes.
And trying to put a bubble wrap around a person does not prepare them for the world.
And this is one thing I always love saying, as much as I am very clear to pre-frame, I don't have children, so take this all with a grain of salt. But whenever I do talk with someone, or there's someone in our courses that's worried about not being a good enough mother for their child, for example, I'll say, look, even if you were the perfect mother, that would screw up your child, because then they'd grow up feeling like they were never as good as you. So either way, there's going to be a perfect level of programming and stuff that your child needs to work through, and you as well. But I think, I think I'm grateful that you could just share a little bit of your experience and your perspective on it. And I appreciate every time that you've just, held my hand and told me that you love me through the ups and downs of this journey. So thank you. And for us being at this, I think the most important thing is that we're on the same page with it. And that feels really important, I think, for both of us. So that's good. So Whether you are single or in a relationship, we want to give you a couple of things to think about. So the first thing I would recommend, and as you know in my podcast, I always get you to do some journaling or some reflection or ask yourself some questions. So I would recommend grabbing a pen and paper and writing down a little bit of a list of what your beliefs are about relationships and if they're serving you. Because a lot of the time our beliefs are from past experiences in relationship or what we witnessed growing up. And sometimes they're really out of date. And then the other thing I would get you to think about is what are you looking for in a partner? Or if you're in a relationship, what do you expect from your partner? And then dive a little bit deeper. How could you actually embody that energy a bit more yourself? And I think that's a really important exercise to start diving in. If we think about shadow work, often the things we want to change in our partner or the things we're looking for in someone outside are things that if we just embodied a bit more of that energy ourselves, it wouldn't be something that felt so, outside of us, but also then we would be a match for being able to attract that. Is there anything else you'd want to add?
Oh, 100%. I think that's huge. I'm always keen to push people into a little bit of discomfort. So if you have a judgment on past partners or men, women, etc., and you go, they're like this, or I don't like people like that, write down your top couple, maybe top 3, and then look at where you've done that in your life. Because one of the illusions we have is that we're a perfect person and other people, if we put ourselves in a bubble of we're not wrong, so the wrong that we reject in ourselves has to go external and we hang it on other people. And so if you can see that you've done those things too, you're going to realize that everyone does them in their own way and you're going to be less judgmental of them. And so therefore you'll be more accepting of, because some people won't get in a relationship because they don't want a person like that, which usually means they're rejecting it in themselves and they're looking for an illusion. There's no person that doesn't have any one-sided person that's never negative, that doesn't get angry, that like everyone does, and if they don't, they repress it, and then eventually they get disease and basically create problems for themselves. So owning in yourself, if you don't own it, it owns you. So look at your life and see where you've had it, and then if you want to go in and deal with that stuff, then come see us at a training and we'll really help you to sort all that out as well.
And that's one thing I'm going to end with. We have a lot of beautiful people in our community that have studied with us and often express desires for their partner to come and study with us. So I wouldn't to remind you that we do have a really generous partner discount. Your partner will get $1,000 off their first training with us, and you can also split that. So you can have $500 off your next training with us. They can have $500 off their first training with us. But the reason we have that generous partner discount is because we have seen so many couples come through our NLP and hypnotherapy trainings together. And even if one of the people in the couple or both of the people in the couple don't necessarily want to become a coach or practice hypnotherapy, honestly, spending a week learning about your mind, the way you filter your realities, your beliefs, your language, hypnotherapy in itself, that 7-day course is one of the most relaxed journeys. We call it a hypnotic holiday, where you will access levels of presence and relaxation and learn tools to help communicate to yourself, which increases your intuition and your connection with yourself. It enhances your meditation practice, whereas the NLP training really helps you understand language and your reality and how you're filtering everything through your beliefs. One
of the best personal development courses you can do if you really want to clean up some of your triggering around relationships, around what you learned growing up that you maybe saw in your parents that's unuseful, because we tend to replicate those things and turn our partners into some of our patterns.
Yes.
And we've seen magic happen with people individually working through that, so they attract better relationships or transform the ones they're in, or couples coming together and actually realizing through the process of doing self-work that it wasn't their partner that was the problem. It was just something that they were bringing up and creating, because people will be who you need them to be to see what you need to see, and they basically...
That's my favorite quote of yours.
They basically find a way to turn their partner into a monster when really their partner is just a person. And once they've cleared the perceptual filters that make them see the stuff on the other person, they'll see the person as what they really are. And that's super powerful, super transformative, and it has saved relationships. And it's been nice to watch. And we also have master coaches that work with us. So if you did want to do some coaching for yourself and your partner, just reach out to us. You can always email me at juliet@relaunchmylife.com.au or visit our website evolveandrelaunch.com.au to find out about courses and trainings. And of course, our brand new speaking academy, which is launching in March. And I just want to say a big thank you. Thank you for being on this crazy path with me. Thank you for all the ups and downs. And thank you for sharing your time. And I think we should have you back in the love
future.
Being here. Thank you for having me on. Keep evolving, everyone, and I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.